Hi friends, welcome back. Now let's jump into the first lab, and we're going to look at the structure of the image store web application, and this will call the image store web API like I described in the previous video. We'll also log into Azure and kind of get things kicked off. I won't go too much detail into this in the future videos because this is going to be very repetitive. So I'll show you this logging into Azure and setting up the PowerShell pretty much only in this video, and after that we will not repeat the same things. So in PowerShell, we need to open up this PowerShell, and the first thing we need to do is, if I come here, like I've checked out my entire project from Git, and then you can see that we are in the home root of the project. So now if I go into Microsoft Labs, I'll see Lab1. Lab1 is the first one we are tackling right now. You can see there's the web app and there's the image store API, right? And the images we can test with, and there's some media that I'm showing for screenshots and stuff like that, and the README to actually create the markdown file to show the steps and the screenshots and whatnot, right? The first thing obviously we have to do is do an AZ login. So you need to have a Azure subscription, kind of, and I use Linux Academy, so I don't have to pay extra more than what I want. So I've created a sandbox here, and I'll use the same credentials here to sign in that through the Azure portal. So this is going to it's going to give power to the AZ PowerShell, like we're logging in through this UI, but it is actually authorizing me to get into the AZ login. So once I do this, you can see that it kind of closes. But if you go back to the PowerShell, you will see that you have actually logged in. So that is definitely the first step. And I won't be repeating this again and again, but just want to show you that that's the first step in every process. So the next thing is, since it's a Java project, we'll definitely need Maven. So try to see whether Maven is recognized. Obviously, it's not in the path. So that's the next thing that we have to make sure that we add to the path, so that the Maven is recognized, right? So I have the instructions kind of ready here. If you see here, that's the path. So you can actually, PowerShell is a little bit different, so you need to use this syntax. So if you do that, you can see that it's not in the path. So what we do is we will add that to the path using the plus operator. This is a little bit different than the regular dot shell. So just want to show you that piece. So if you do that, it will add it to the path, and then you can do Maven, and then you will see that it is actually in the path right now. So that's simple first step. So now again, coming back to our sample application, the web app is the front end UI, and then the image store API is the backend API that is getting called from this web app to actually store the images into its local folder, plus also onto a storage account, right? So that's the project we're trying to do right now. So you can see the web app, that's the main application. So here I've tried to put the naming convention as 1001, 1002, etc. That will kind of give you that step by step process, like how you do it, right? So the first thing obviously we need to do is to create the app service plan. So I will kick it off here so that it runs. So what I have done also behind the scenes is I made it configurable. It is actually going to query the Azure, get all the subscription IDs, the resource group names that are provisioned via cloud, via the a cloud group, and then it actually creates the app service dynamically on the fly. So just I'll show you this quick script, and that saves a lot of time because you don't have to keep repeating this again and again. So if you kind of see this, um, like if you go back to the Lab1, and then you go to the web app. So if you see the script here, and this piece is repeating every time. So what this does is it actually gets the AZ account show, gets the subscription ID, and then when you do query for the ID and that output is TSV, then it will actually show you the subscription, and it will not have all those fancy JSON structures. So that's a very common pattern. We need to use output TSV and then query for the specific property that we are interested in the JSON, right? So then we echo that subscription ID. Then we also in the A Cloud Guru subscriptions, We cannot actually go and create a resource group. If you have your own account, obviously you can do that. But here in they have a restriction not to allow us to create a resource group. So what I'm doing is I'm actually listing all the resource groups that are present in the current subscription, and usually it is going to be only one, and that is what I'm printing it out. And I also get the location so that you can create the location. Create all the resources in the right location where the resource group is. You don't have to, but it makes it easier to kind of see and visualize. So and then if you see here, this is the environmental variables that we use, and it's getting after the query. It is actually getting assigned to the individual environmental variable, and that is what is actually used inside the subsequent commands to create the things that we need in Azure. So if you kind of go back, if you look at the script and then kind of go back here, that's kind of what you will see. You will see that we started off. It says we need to make sure that we use PowerShell, then print subscription ID, then we print the resource group of that under that subscription that has been created for us by a cloud guru, and then we also get the region which is West US, and you can see right after I fired that command, it is going to create a new app service plan, right? So that is again, I won't repeat this too much because it gets very repetitive, but just want to show you that. So now let's log in to the portal itself and then kind of see that in action as we go. So I'm going to jump back here, copy the credentials. These credentials will anyway vanish. I'm not worried too much to show you the credentials because they will expire. The sandbox expires in 4 hours. So I'm not too worried about showing the credentials to you and even checking it into GitLab, right? Because anyway, you can't use them anymore. So once I do that, I come in here into the resource group, and then you can see that the app service plan was created here, right? You see that's the app service plan that got created. So we'll repeat the same thing now. Like I said, we have the first app service plan, then we will have to create the storage account. If we do AR here, you will see that we go, 1002 is actually deploying the apps into the account, but we can actually create the storage account first. It doesn't matter. So we can go here and then we can create the storage account. The same steps occur, right? Captures the subscription ID, location, resource group, and all that, and it actually creates a storage account. These things are fast, but if things are very slow, like a Cosmos DB account and all that takes a lot of time. So what I will do is I will run that behind the scenes and then kind of show you the screenshot of how it ran, because um, if you don't do that, then the videos will become extremely long, or I have to cut and edit, which I'm very lazy, so I don't usually do that. So like some of them I'll show live, but some of them which are taking a lot of time, I will try not to bother and like show a live stream. So you can see that also got created, and these are all the endpoints that you need to kind of see here, because these are the ones that we will use inside our application when we are actually putting it in Spring. So going back to the same place, and then if you hit refresh, uh, sometime it takes a while. So if we come back here, yeah, it's still not showing up. There you go, it came up now. So you see the app service plan, the storage account has been created. And if you go into the storage account and go into the containers, you will see that there's an images container that also got created via the script. And then you can look at the script, and these are actually very important for AZ204, and that's the reason I'm kind of checking in all the scripts too, because they will ask questions on the actual command line interface CLI scripts that we use. So if you go back to the storage account, you will see that it's actually creating the storage account here. Is your storage account create and etc. And of course, you need to change your name here. If it is available, maybe you will get it, but it's better to change these things to your own names, or even make it parameterized. If you have the time to do that, then you can do that. So I'm taking the cheapest option, LRS, and it's a storage kind V2, and it's in the same location as the resource group. And I made sure here that I create a container, but that is not available for public access. So that's important to note, because what we are trying to do here is actually trying to um, create the blob data via the web API, so it doesn't need to be public. But once you log into the portal, you can actually see the contents, but you'll not be able to list it out via its URL, right? So if you go to change access level here, it's actually private. So that's important to know. So the next step, obviously, is here. Um, Coming back to this, it will deploy this web application. Um, so you can do it in either order. The API, if you deploy the web application first, it's not going to work because the API is needed behind. But it's okay just for this demonstration purposes. We'll deploy everything and then do the demo. So we'll deploy the app. So this is again going to do the same steps. It's going to read and deploy this application, just the front end application, right, into the. So you can see here now the Maven builds get kicked off, and now and when you do Maven, actually there's a plugin that Maven plugin that Microsoft has developed, and that is the one which you see the space. It will actually Azure SDK for Java. That and it's called Azure Web App plugin. Those two are the ones which will actually kind of use the authentication that we have already done via the AZ login and publish the application. You see this one, it's actually publishing this web application into the application service plan that we have told. So I will try to make a separate video because those are very repetitive configurations. I'll try to make a separate video and kind of show how to set up the app service plan parameters, how to pass the parameters, and all of that. So you can see it's actually deploying this. It built the jar file. It's a Spring Boot app, and it builds the jar file, and it's actually pushing that into the app service plan, and that is the web app that created. So let's wait for this to complete. So, and I will try to show the source code quickly as it deploys. So if you go back here, so this is a standard Spring Boot application, and you will have the same structure what you can usually see in other applications. So source main Java and source main resources, and then and if you kind of noticed here, there is a root folder which will have the main application core program. That is a Spring Boot, the application annotation, Spring Boot application, this one, and then we also have enable configuration right here. Um, so that is what we expose, and the important piece here is these three. The hello controller is just for testing purposes. It just pings back your name. If you do the get mapping, we can see that in the demo. And this is parameterized to get your message from the configuration, right? And this configuration is also externalized, which I will kind of show you. And this is the upload controller. This is the most important one because the upload controller is the one which takes the files from our local and actually pushes that uh, into our Azure. And again, this piece is also coming from our, you can see this is what I've used for testing, but that is the one which is actually coming from our config. So a lot of dependencies, but if you look through the source code, it's not that too hard. It's not very hard. You will basically see all the pieces linking together. So you can see, yeah, it's deployed. So if you switch back and then go back to the resource group, and maybe I need a refresh. And now you can see that there's a image store web app working, right? And this is the URL of the app, so you can copy that and try to open it up. It won't do much. If you do that, it will actually be uh, it'll probably get an error because the configuration is not set up. But I want to show you that error too. And sometimes it also takes a while for it to deploy, even though it says deployed. Yeah, I have noticed it will take like usually 3 to 5 minutes sometimes to even come up. But that's okay. So that's one thing, right? So that we finished. So let's move on to the next step and provision the other piece where we are actually going to deploy the app configuration, right? So that's where we set up all the app